In this lesson, we're going to learn how to make a basic scatter plot with the data that we've imported into R. And the scatter plot's the only one that I'm going to show you with R's basic plotting function, because after this we're going to move on to using the ggplot2 package, which I've found to be infinitely easier to use than R's plotting package. But I'm still going to show you how to make a basic plot just to look at the syntax a little bit. So I've pulled up the help function in the bottom right for generic XY plotting, and these graphs are available through R's graphics package, so it's something that automatically comes with R. And we're going to look at this help box a little bit just to translate what it says. So whenever you look up a function in here, you're going to see there's a description of it. So it says generic function for plotting of R objects. And then we've got usage, which is just an example of code that you might write. And then it has the arguments. Arguments are what you're inputting. So it says X and Y are your arguments, well, are two of your arguments, and those are just the X and Y coordinates because we're making a scatter plot. And then it shows this argument here, which just means that you're adding a whole bunch of things if you want to. Then it lists a bunch of things down here. So you can draw points, lines, both points and lines, like a histogram, any of these things. And then it lists this stuff. The main element is when you want to put the title in, a sub is a subtitle, labels, and then aspect ratio. Then it's going to give you some details and also some related formulas. And then sometimes it will also have an example. And the examples can be really useful if you want to compare your code to the examples. So let's look at the plot that I've made really quickly here. So first, I'm going to load hist data because we're going to use the prostitutes data frame, which is in this package. So we have to load it into R. And the next thing we're going to do is call the names function on prostitutes so that we can see what the names of all the columns are so we know how to spell them. So we're going to make a scatter plot with year on the x-axis and the number of prostitutes on the y-axis. To do this, this is our graph code here, but I'm doing a little bit of a cheat. So you might notice I'm just saying year and count, but that's actually a bit of a problem because R doesn't know what year and count are. These two are referring to elements within the data file prostitutes, but R doesn't know that. So what I could do is I could say prostitutes when year, and then prostitutes when count, but that's a little more typing than I want to do maybe. So we're going to take that out, and instead we're going to say attach prostitutes. And that's going to tell R that when it makes this graph and it looks for where this data is, it's also going to search within prostitutes. Usually all it does is it searches the data frames on a broad spectrum, so it will just see prostitutes. It won't see those column titles. But when I attach it, R will also look within prostitutes to find these two elements. So now that we've attached prostitutes, we can graph this, and it will show up in our plots tab over here. And so let's walk through this line of code. I've said plot, and then within these parentheses, I'm saying year on the x-axis, count on the y-axis, so it's going to be x, y. Main, if you recall from the help viewer over here, is just the title, and I have to put that in quotation marks, and I've named it. And then I've changed the names of the x and y axis. So that gives me a very, very basic scatter plot. And the last thing I'm going to do is if I want to add a regression line, which is just basically a line of best fit, I'm going to also run this, and it's going to say AB line, LM, and then this means that I want Y, I don't know the name of that symbol, Y squiggle X. So I want the Y axis, squiggle X axis. And then I'm going to say the color is going to be red, just to make it stand out. If I run this, then it gives me a line of best fit for this whole range of data. Once I'm satisfied with my graph, I want a way of getting it out of R into another file. So I'm going to click export, and I'm going to save plot as image. I'm going to name it prostitutes in Paris, and then I can choose where to save it by clicking directory. This will just save it into my downloads. I can change what type of image I want, so maybe I want a JPEG. I can say how big I want it, and then I will click, I'm going to say view after saving, and I'll save. And now it's saved it as a JPEG that I can insert into other documents maybe, or do whatever with. So now that I've finished with this graph, I've got it saved out of R and everything. I'm going to run this line. This is detach prostitutes. Every time we have the attach function, we should always detach it after we're done, because otherwise maybe later on you could run into problems where maybe you've got the same variables. Year is a very common variable, so you could run into problems later on with R searching through prostitutes and finding year and maybe mixing it with other data frames, and you just don't want that to get messed up, so we're going to detach. And now R will no longer search within prostitutes if we run this code. So now this will no longer work because it doesn't know where that year is. In this lesson, we learned the basic scatterplot function available with R's basic graphics package. In the next couple lectures, we'll start delving into ggplot2 and making all different types of graphs with that graphing package.